Good morning, everyone. I apologize for the delayed start to today's episode of Shields and Arrows. We are using some new software, and I'm getting used to it. One reason why we had some issues for the Sunday school session, even though we did get a decent amount of it done, I'll cover the books that I didn't get to in the Sunday school session at a later time. And so this is going to be good. It's going to allow us to do some fun, exciting, new things. Just stay tuned. Be patient with me. Long suffer with me. Thank you all so much for your patience. Let's see here. On Sunday, yesterday, we covered Hosea, session number 3. That's available for you on YouTube, as we are covering Hosea verse by verse. So hopefully you are enjoying that study. As you can tell, my voice is starting to get back to form, finally. And we also covered the book of Hebrews. And I think you got a little bit of Paul's epistles there in the course of our guide to the Greek scriptures. And hopefully you were all able to find me. Paul, I don't know if you're watching. I need to send you a text message. I got your message. The answer is yes, absolutely. We can do it anytime. And it's just over at my house. All right. So that's where I want to let you know. I saw your message, and I do apologize for not getting to you quicker, okay? So, Paul, if you're watching, you know what I'm talking about. All right. I am sending out a little bit more data because my settings aren't quite like I need them to be. If you're driving, if your service is not the strongest, it may be a little bit slow for you. So just that's hopefully the explanation there for you. All right, so some subjects on today's show. We're going to be talking about Trump and his great efforts cleaning up Washington, D.C., and they have been great efforts. However, he needs to stop there. He's talking about moving on to other cities, and I'm going to explain why I am not a fan of that. We're also going to be talking about the New York mayoral candidate and him showing that he cannot bench press 135 pounds and why it matters. And I think how there's going to be a shift, and we're going to get back to, hey, we want the strong men to lead the way. And so hopefully that will destroy his chances of winning the New York mayoral position, because he's a radical communist socialist. We're also going to talk about a little bit of Elaine Maxwell and her discussing Epstein. Is Trump indicted on her account? Is he vindicated on her account? Can we even believe her account? What does it matter? And then finally, we're going to talk about modern evangelicalism, how it takes the most boring of approaches. And a great example is going to be an article from the Gospel Coalition talking about the book of Jonah. And I know a little bit about Jonah. I've studied the book of Jonah, covered it verse by verse. And so also, I'll remind you, this week there will be no Friday morning Shields and Arrows. Okay, no Friday Shields and Arrows. Why? Because I'll be in Branson. All right. Now, at least let me say I don't plan on there being a Friday Shields and Arrows. Everything will be updated for you. I'll keep you in the loop. All right. So exciting things happening, exciting things going on. But even though I'm going to be in Branson this weekend at the Labor Day Bible Conference, provided by Randy White Ministries, you might see me. You might see me a little bit, whether it's in live or I'm hoping you'll see the after effects. So stay tuned. Exciting things. You just follow the YouTube channel, follow the Facebook page, send me an email. I'll keep you in the loop. Okay, I've got some plans, but it's not 100% a work trip because I'm bringing the whole family with me. And so that's a wild card, right? So I can't control everything when all the kids are with me. But I've got some things in store for you. All right. Now, let's see here. First thing I want to talk about, I don't have a video link. I wish I had a video link, but I might be able to find one. We'll see. The Zoran Mamdani is his name. This is the leader right now for the mayoral position over New York City. Obviously, he's a radical Democrat. He is, he's a crazy leftist. He's a communist. He's a socialist. Now, he's saying things that speak to people because he's really been making a big point about the expenses in New York City, but his solution is government controls everything. Well, recently he showed up at a public event to see how much he could bench press. First of all, as somebody who does lift a little bit, you can tell that he doesn't know what he's doing, partly because his grip is not even on the bar. You need to have an even grip. You don't want it to be lopsided. It's going to be too heavy on, you're going to create a moment arm, right? A fulcrum or a torque on the bar that's uneven. So Mamdani here does not get a proper setup, and this is 135 pounds. Now, 135 pounds may sound like a lot, and if you are a sweet, wonderful grandmother, 135 pounds is no joke, okay? Even if you're a, sweet grandfather. But if you are a male of, the age at which you should be capable of doing physical things, 135 pounds ain't much, okay? I warm up with 135 pounds, all right? Zoran Mamdani, I don't know if he ruined his entire political career right here, but he may have. He's in his 30s. I think he's a younger guy. I think he's in his early 30s, maybe. We're going to watch him try to bench press 135 pounds. So here we go. I'm gonna give you the play-by-play. A lot of people watching, everybody videoing. Once again, his grip is uneven already. So let's just stop. First of all, do you see how his back is just flat on the bench? This tells you he doesn't do really any working out. You need to have an arch, okay? You want to have a big chest, big strong chest. You want to have an arch in your back. This allows your chest to really be fully stretched. And just think about it, right? You're going to have your most pushing power like this. Your chest is collapsed in. Are you able to really make the most of your entire pectoral muscles? No, of course not. You need to get big and wide. You can push a whole lot more. You're able to recruit a lot more muscle mass, okay? So the fact that he doesn't have a good arch in his back, he's laying kind of flat, already tells me that he doesn't have a lot of experience lifting weights. So here we go. Now, another thing you'll notice. His spotter has his hands on the bar, okay? If this was a weightlifting competition or I was a weightlifting coach, that would not count, okay? Now, that's what I'm going to say. Some people are giving Mamdani too much credit, saying that he bench pressed 135 pounds twice. He did not bench press 135 pounds at all, okay? 0 times, all right? 0 times. Did he bench 135 pounds because his hands are on the bar, and it just simply doesn't count if your hands are on the bar. If the spotter is helping you at all, and you'd be surprised how much just a little bit of help goes a long way. So here we go. He goes down, doesn't touch his chest. You'll notice that there. If I can go back here, right at the lowest point of his lift, it looks like right about there. For it to be a complete rep on the bench, you got to touch your chest, okay? You got to go all the way down. That's a complete rep. All the way down, all the way back up. So he did 0 reps, and the guy is holding the bar for him, to be completely honest. So here we go. I mean, like I said, I warm up with 135 pounds. I'll do anything from like 12 to 15 reps of 135, okay, to get some blood flowing, all right? So here we go. Pushes it up, holding on to the bar, okay, like I said, the whole way. That I'm telling you right now, I can just tell by the way that bar moved. When he pushed that up, that was 100% this gentleman right here, okay? This gentleman lifted the bar for him, okay? He's trying to make him look good. Now, you could tell that Mamdani did not want to do another rep, okay? He really didn't want to, but the spotter made him do another one. Or maybe, and maybe the spotter thought that he was going to rack, because the spotter kind of started to pull it back. But then he's like, no, I'm going to do another one. So then he goes down, and you see how this guy kind of panics here. You see his hand kind of comes out, and he's like, oh boy. And then he claps. So maybe that was it. But you can tell, look at how uneven the arms are. See how this arm on the left here, and then the foot comes off the ground. Look at that. The foot comes off. I mean, folks, high school boys. I've seen high school girls even bench 135 pounds and do it with proper form. As you can tell, I'm not completely over the crud, but I'm getting there. Now, why does that matter? Was this petty? Maybe a little bit. But I think it matters because people don't want weak leaders. Now, they don't want them to be weak in the sense of their conviction, their confidence, their capability. But also, I think physical ability matters. Think about, how King Saul was described. Not that King Saul was, the best king that Israel had ever seen, but he was described as being head and shoulders, right, literally taller than the rest. I mean, he's a big, strong, physical guy. David was a warrior himself. So I think as we see a trend, with young men especially, and even young women, I think we're starting to see a trend there as well. I have hope for you, young ladies. People are going to want their leaders to not only be strong in the sense of conviction, but also just like physically strong, physically capable, okay? And physical weakness is, I think, going to start becoming a factor. And he exposed himself here, okay? Mamdani, if no conservative would watch that set on bench press and feel like, yeah, hey, this is definitely the guy that we want to be leading us. Like I said, I don't think I'm being too petty here. I think that this is a serious problem. And of course, it doesn't help that Mamdani is a Democrat, and there's already the stigma that Democrats have no testosterone, and he's really showing it there. I mean, that was embarrassing. That was 100% the guy that was spotting him that helped him with that. So really, really bad there. Okay. I think it's important, and so we'll see. I don't know. Is this going to change anything when it comes to the mayoral race in New York City? I don't know. Right? Depends on who's supporting him. The Mamdani's overwhelming support is going to be with the white people there in New York City. It's funny, a lot of the minorities actually are not all on board with him because they kind of like people who are strong on policing crime. And Mamdani has been openly against the police departments in New York City. So, I don't know. Interesting to me. Fascinating stuff. We'll see if it matters. But yeah, if you know nothing about lifting weights, that's not how you do it. Now, I do have to talk about Trump a little bit here as we're getting our political stuff out of the way, and then we'll move on to other things. Trump has done an excellent job within his constitutional rights of cleaning up Washington, D.C. You've probably seen some of the reports that, it's been however many days now without a carjacking, a homicide, you name it, right? I mean, DC's breaking records for peace, and people are enjoying it. They appreciate it. They like the fact that there's not, crime running amok in our nation's capital. And Trump absolutely has every federal right as the president to see to these matters in Washington, D.C. But you see the article here. This is where I'm going to draw a line, okay? Trump eyes Chicago for next crime crackdown. Now let me talk about this. This is a fascinating thing. I think Trump would do a great job of cleaning up Chicago. I think that he would do an amazing job. I think he would march the National Guard in. I think he would bring in other police officers, and I think Chicago can be cleaned up because you've got to prosecute the crime, all right? And you've got to stand up to the bad guys, and if the bad guys threaten you and come after you and try to carry out violence on you, then you shoot the bad guys. It's not a very hard thing to do. Well, it's not a very hard concept. Maybe a little bit easier said than done. But then again, they don't aim. They just kind of like hold their guns crooked and spray and pray. So if you're trained with a firearm, you probably can have some success. I digress. So there's a part of me that would love to see it. Wouldn't you just love to see Trump marching in through, the streets of Chicago, arresting thugs, arresting gangs, and getting all this violent crime off the streets? I mean, if you took out Chicago's gun violence, the United States probably drops to, top 5 in the world for gun violence. Just violence in general, probably. However, as much as I would love to see it, here's the issue. I don't think the federal government has the constitutional authority, and I also don't think it's just a good idea in general for the federal government to go into a sovereign state and essentially police the cities within that state. Would I think Trump would do a good job? Absolutely, I do. If Trump was elected mayor of every state or every city in America, right, he would probably do a great job. The issue is, and I think that this is where people sometimes make the mistake, how would you feel if Joe Biden marched the National Guard into a city to accomplish whatever goal he had? What if, and here's the thing, the National Guard sometimes maybe was used by Democrats, but you know who else was used by Democrats to effectuate their desire? Like Antifa. I mean, and then they, said that you don't have the right to prevent these rioters from destroying your cities. Remember all the whole crime and debacle, or the controversy and trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, who was preventing Antifa, BLM from burning down cities and towns, and then all the media went after him. It's a fascinating thing. And that is a little bit more on a technicality there, because Antifa is not an official agency or department within government, even though they are weaponized by the Democrats a lot. But a better example would be the National Guard. Imagine that, I don't know, the people within Oklahoma decided they wanted to protest an abortion clinic. Okay, thankfully Oklahoma has a lot of pro-life laws, makes it very hard for abortion clinics to operate, but nonetheless, still. And they are gathering to protest outside of an abortion clinic. And the abortion clinic says, oh, this is, making things difficult for us. It's, turning, women away. They don't want to come just because of all the people and, the praying or whatever. They're disturbing the peace. And Biden says, not in my America. We're not going to tolerate this. All of our cities are going to be welcoming and supportive of these reproductive health care facilities, whatever political jargon that he would, throw out there. And then he would say, I have the power to get our cities in order. So then he marches in the National Guard to disperse people who are, he's claiming, not peacefully protesting, but disturbing the peace. Can you see that scenario? And can you see why I am not a fan of it? I don't like that idea. Not that I don't think Trump wouldn't do a great job. The issue is what happens when the bat is being wielded by somebody else. It's not a zero-sum game, okay? The great mistake that we can make, and I think many people have already made in America, is winner take all. When you get power, you use that power as much as you can. You bring everybody into your submission. And then I think the goal is you never relinquish that power. So that's why, for example, the Democrats, and I will blame them primarily, I would say, for a lot of things, they blow up the power and reach of the federal government And they love it because their guy's wielding power. Obama's doing what he wants to do, or whoever else. And then they are terrified when they lose that power, because now, guess what? That big club that they have made even bigger by expanding executive power and federal power is going to get to be swung by somebody else. Trump did not break the rules. He did not create the rules. He's just following the precedents of other presidents, all right, of other executives. And so he's saying, look, I've seen other people march right into sovereign states and impose their will upon them. I'm just going to do it for good, right? It's kind of like the Lord of the Rings, if you will, for a moment. Anybody here familiar with Lord of the Rings and the books, or maybe the movies? And the idea is, I would use the ring of power for good, right? I will use the executive for good. The problem is, what happens when eventually that ring of power gets in the hands of Sauron, right? The bad guy. Because as long as the ring exists, if you do not destroy the ring, it can eventually fall in the hands of evil, and evil will use it to do great damage. And also, there is the sense that power corrupts, right? So as you use the ring, you're always going to go further, right? Well, now that I've taken this step, I'm that much closer to taking this step, and I can claim more power. So, like I said, all in favor of Trump going in and cleaning up D.C. It's a great thing, excellent thing, right? However, in order to prevent the abuse of power, it must be limited. Federal government must be limited. And for Trump to go into a sovereign state and go beyond his jurisdiction and police Chicago or Los Angeles or Atlanta, Louisiana, Baton Rouge, whatever, city that you could think of, I don't know. It's an infringement on state sovereignty. The states need to police themselves. Now, and when we had Jake Merrick, candidate for governor of Oklahoma, every time I hear him speak about this matter, it's just excellent, excellent. If you're an Oklahoman, you need to listen to Jake Merrick, and I think his approach to federal government and state government is exactly right in what it needs to be. He even addressed that, yeah, there's federal laws on the books, especially concerning illegal aliens, and there's federal jurisdiction that Oklahoma has some limited authority on, and so you have to work within the bounds of federal law. That doesn't mean you can't do anything, but there are some federal authorities. So, for example, if Trump said, I'm going to mobilize, ICE, or maybe request help of the National Guard to carry out federal matters concerning the deportation, the arrest of illegal aliens. That's a federal issue, and Trump has a legitimate legal case to exercise that power. What he doesn't have, I believe constitutionally, is the right to say, hey, crime in Chicago is really bad, and the mayor and the police are not getting it done. I'm going to go in with the National Guard, and I'm going to police the state. I don't like that because, once again, do I trust Trump? I do, actually, but I don't trust who's going to come after him. And also, I don't, trust just the power that's in the executive, because what if it's expanded beyond its bounds and becomes oppressive, tyrannical, if you will. So this is a problem, and I talked about this. You could go back a few weeks ago when I addressed this. I warned you all. I'm worried Trump isn't going to stop at D.C. Okay? And there are some conservatives out there. I was listening to Michael Knowles today from the Daily Wire. He's all for it. But that's because there's a fundamental difference in how we view the world. Michael Knowles views the United States as an empire. Now, he may just be calling a spade, because that is kind of what the United States is. And Michael Knowles is much more, as well as some other conservatives, they have kind of said The country is what it is. Your dream, your vision of your dream, your vision of all this is gone. There is no republic anymore. There is no the idea of sovereign states is long gone. And so maybe they're just they think they're just waking up and smelling the smell the roses. Okay, this is the way it is, and you just need to get with the program. But then there's some more of us who say, no, we have to hold on to the original idea, a republic of sovereign states, and we need to limit the executive government, let each state govern themselves. So I'm going to hold on to that. Okay, I think that if we take on the view that we're an empire, so we're just going to give our executive, whether that's Trump or any other president, the free pass to go and police a sovereign city or a sovereign state's city, then we've given up. And now we are in an empire stage. And how long until we just declare a single man Caesar? Which, in effect, our president kind of is a Caesar. However, that requires us to just accept it. I'm not willing to just accept it, to accept defeat. So I think the better solution is to continue to stand for state sovereignty. It's a major issue. It's a serious threat. Now, staying on the matter of President Trump and the federal government and everything else. Hey, by the way, we've got Scott with us. Scott's been a long-time watcher. I know that he had trouble being able to engage with us online, so I certainly get that. Anyways, great to have you, Scott. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is, are you ready? Are you ready for the juicy details here concerning Epstein? You know me, I'm a skeptic, that no new information is going to come out. All right? I think that we've got all that we're ever going to get. I could be completely wrong. But nonetheless, it's still in the news. Here's August 22nd, 2025. That's when it came out, so at the end of last week. Elaine Maxwell reveals whether she believes Epstein committed suicide. What did she say? Of course, you'll know that she was Epstein's girlfriend, business partner, associate. I don't know anyways. But here's what she says. Maxwell said she doesn't believe that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. Oh, my goodness. Stop the presses. Her story contradicts the official story from the Trump administration, right? So obviously she's going to spill the beans. She's going to come out and say, everybody, you're all right. The theory, or the conspiracy theory is true. Trump, all of them, they were involved in this trafficking with Jeffrey Epstein. And Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. Hillary Clinton snuck in there and Epsteined him. Is that the story? Is that what she's going to say? You'll be a little bit disappointed, okay? Because even though she says she doesn't believe that Epstein killed himself, she also said this, the report from Daily Wire, Maxwell also denied the existence of any Epstein client list. Hold on now, wait a minute. How does this follow? She's splitting the baby here. On one hand, he didn't kill himself. On the other, there's no client list. And furthermore, she denied that anyone was being blackmailed by Epstein. Maxwell was asked if she had seen a variety of powerful men do anything inappropriate with women during her interactions with them. So she was asked that. And she said, absolutely never in any context. She said, when asked if she had seen President Donald Trump do anything improper, she said she never seen him do anything. Trump was always very cordial and very kind to me, and I just want to say that I admire his extraordinary achievement in becoming the president now, and I like him, and I've always liked him. So that is the sum and substance of my entire relationship with him, she said, according to the transcript. Now, once again, how does this follow? You would think, okay, so there's going to be some who immediately come out and say, she is completely lying through her teeth. She's just trying to get good with Trump so she can get a pardon, that they're cutting deals under the table. He's in on it. This just proves that Trump is in on it. That's what everybody's going to say. It just proves that Trump's in on it. Then again, also, she said the same thing about Bill Clinton. and a number of others, okay? So she came out and defended just about everybody. Now, it's strange all the more. Why was Epstein in prison? Why was Maxwell imprisoned? Because she was convicted in 2021, the article says, for her role in the Epstein scheme to abuse and exploit minor girls. She's currently serving out a 20-year sentence that was moved to a lower security prison shortly after she met with Blanc, the reporter here. So what do we make of all this? She thinks that maybe it was a prisoner, potentially, that could have killed Epstein. But if she was just going to toe the complete story, right, what she was being fed by the deep state, Trump, the federal government, what have you, why wouldn't she just go along and say, yeah, Epstein definitely killed himself, just as Trump said, or as the FBI said, as the report said? Why does she have a little bit of mixed, yeah, no, he didn't kill himself. He really was killed by somebody. But at the same time, no, Trump's not involved, neither are these others. There was no blackmail, there was no scheme of that sort. He was just simply abusing the girls himself, and she played a role, involvement in that. Remember when I told you that you're never going to learn anything new, okay? It's been my position. You're never going to learn anything new. You still learn nothing new. Because either she's absolutely right, and that's what the FBI said. There was no list. There was no clear evidence or details that Maxwell was involved in any of these nefarious schemes. Okay, so either that's the case, or she's lying and she's covering for Trump. She's trying to get a pardon. She's trying to get a deal cut, what have you. And so therefore, you still learn nothing, because it all goes back to, yeah, she's involved and it's a conspiracy, and this goes up all the way to the highest level. Like I said, I know that you want answers, but who else could testify at this point? Epstein's gone. Epstein's dead. Whether he's dead one way or the other, however that happened. Maxwell was kind of the last one. Her testimony was going to be key. And nobody's going to believe that testimony, at least the one that Trump's and whoever else is not involved, because they've already made up their mind. So that's it. I feel like that's the last thing. What the Epstein thing is going to be is it's going to be another JFK assassination. So we know clear facts. In Dallas, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was shot. He was assassinated. That's what we know. We know the story they gave us, that Lee Harvey Oswald did it. We know all the extra conspiracies. Ties to Russia, Johnson, the man on the green knoll, Oswald being killed by the nightclub owner. Somebody help me out with his name. There's plenty of juicy stuff there for a conspiracy, right? Plenty of it. But what we know is what we know, and the rest is going to be debated till the end of time. What about Epstein? We know he's dead. We know that he was involved. He was an abuser of young women. He palled around with rich people. That's the things we know. The other stuff, there's the speculation about who all was on his flight list. What happened the night that he died? Did he kill himself, or was it suicide? They said that there was a list. They said there was this. They said there was that. And now there is none of that. The Epstein thing's it's going to be like the JFK. It is what it is. all the seeds are there for an amazing conspiracy, and nobody's going to be satisfied with the story. And you're not going to get the rest of it, because what we got on JFK is what we've got on JFK. After, 60 years? In 60 years, this is probably about all we're going to have on Epstein as well. Will there be some documentary come out, some movie come out, like they did with JFK, that makes it seem like it was a conspiracy? Maybe, but there won't be anything new, and a lot of it will probably be made up for the show. Yeah, Jack Ruby, thank you, Scott. Yep, he worked for the mob. Plenty of fascinating things to talk about there. I think a lot of people would say, at the very least, did Oswald act on his own? I don't know if anybody would believe that Oswald acted on his own. Why would a nightclub, manager working for the mob, or nightclub owner, whatever he was, just throw his life away by shooting Oswald? It's a little bit speculative to me, a little bit strange. Why Epstein's mysterious death? Why was he friends with so many popular people? Why does it seem like this is something that nobody wants to talk about in the higher-ups? Why did Kash Patel change his story so fast? The seeds are all there, right? The seeds are all there. So just get ready. Epstein, JFK, they're going to live in infamy. Scott says, yeah, the magic bullet theory, right? Impossible. How it could have made the path, because it went into the shoulder, right, of who was sitting in front of JFK. Was it a Dallas governor, Dallas senator, maybe, or a Texas governor, Texas senator, or maybe I can't remember who that was, but lots of weird stuff. I think what you're seeing is this is solidifying Epstein as the next JFK. Plain and simple. That's what we got. History happening in real time, folks, and you got to be a part of it. And it's just frustrating. Connolly. Wasn't he a Texas politician? Governor? Senator? Something like that? You got to remember, I'm a young guy, Scott. I'm sorry. I don't remember all these old guys. So fun stuff. We'll have many stories to tell, I suppose. All right. So all that to be said here. Let's talk about a little bit of theology for a moment, okay? I always look around the evangelical, big mainstream websites and whatnot to see what they have to say, what's on their, what are they worrying their little minds about. And found this little article here from the Gospel Coalition. The Gospel Coalition is a very much evangelical, kind of affiliated with the Southern Baptists, Calvinist, weak-spined, leftist sympathizing website. I think that's about the best way I can describe the Gospel Coalition. Weak-spined, leftist sympathizing. They will come out and, critique, call out any time that Donald Trump so much as sniffs. But then when the Democrats are openly trying to undermine marriage or trans the kids, the Gospel Coalition says, some politicians believe that parents should know what's going on at school with their kids concerning their gender. Really, some politicians? What politicians could possibly be interested in that? It must be the Republicans, right? The Republicans are the ones trying to trans the kids. So the Gospel Coalition, they're very funny, very silly, source of many jokes. Not quite as much as Christianity Today, but still a good source of jokes. And I found this article that they posted just today, so fresh, hot off the press, August 25, 2025. Christ on every page, how the book of Jonah points to Jesus. Now, let me say, first of all, there are absolutely times in which the Old Testament prophets, major and minor, both, are types of Christ. Okay? Typology, foreshadowing. And I think Jonah is true as well. Absolutely. And so they are going to be partly right to a degree in their analysis of the book of Jonah. But you got to love the line here. Christ on every page. This is one of the most, first of all, Joanna Krimble. So, to me this sounds like teaching here. And not very traditional, I would say. So Joanna, I'm sure she's a very nice girl. Masters of Theological Studies. I should have just done a Masters of Theological Studies. That would have been done a lot sooner. Westminster Theological Seminary. I imagine he's Calvinist here. Westminster. I mean, that's all you need to know, right? So anyways, Gospel Coalition being very, very progressive here, having a lady teaching a Bible lesson for them today. Look at how modern and progressive they are. I am going to have to show you this. If you go to markbazeministries.org, the website made possible by so many of you excellent people. Nathan, help. My website's broken. Maybe. I'm going to talk to Nathan here. Maybe he's doing some work on the website. If you go to the website right now, you'll see nothing. So it's very sad. But if you go to YouTube, I suppose, I do just want to point out, to advertise my own Bible conference last year, if you go over here to my channel, you go to playlists, you will see Addressing Common Bible Study Mistakes. That was our 7-session Bible conference we did in the spring. I'm eventually going to turn off the ads, folks. I really will. Finding the gospel on every page. This is the same thing, I would say. Finding the gospel on every page, and I teach on this this very common Bible study mistake that they make here. Forcing allegory and making everything about the gospel. The problem is the gospel is not on every page, because our gospel, saved by grace through faith and not of works, lest anyone should boast, have nothing to do with Israel, having nothing to do with the future prophetic kingdom or the law, was not revealed until the Apostle Paul. So our gospel literally cannot be on every page. Just can't. All right? Logically impossible. Makes no sense. Incoherent. But speaking of incoherent, not logical, the Gospel Coalition comes in. So here's the first statement of the article here. All of Scripture points to Jesus. Question the assumptions. It's a popular line. Sounds good. Makes everybody feel warm and fuzzy. Is it? Does all of Scripture point to Jesus? I don't think so. I think all of Scripture is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness. But all of Scripture pointing to Jesus? I don't know. I think it's a hermeneutical mistake. Are there lots of passages that point to Jesus, point to Christ? Sure. Everyone? No. Here we go. Whether a passage predicts Christ, sure. That's fine. Prepares God's people for Christ. That's a very, very loose statement right there. Prepares God's people for Christ. What does that even mean? Right? Is that John the Baptist? Make straight a highway for the Lord. He that comes after me is greater than me. He must increase, I must decrease. There's good examples. But what about others? I mean, I feel like you can do that with a lot. Genesis 3:15, kind of. He will bruise thy head, thou shalt bruise his heel. Reflects Christ? Maybe. There are passages that can foreshadow a type of Christ. Show the results of Christ's work. We can find Him on every page. Fascinating statement. Often done, poorly done, and incorrectly done, I would say. Very often. It's easy to see Jesus in the gospel accounts or the New Testament epistles, but what about the books of the law or the Old Testament historical narratives? Understanding or teaching passages from these books in a Christ-centered way isn't always straightforward. Yeah, the reason why it isn't always straightforward is because a lot of times Jesus just isn't on every page. Okay, he's just not. So don't make that mistake. Especially our gospel. Now, there are times when Jesus is prophesied of as the coming Messiah. When you read in Genesis 1, God creating the heavens and the earth, yeah, Christ was the one that made it. But the problem is, when you say Jesus on every page, I know what you mean by that. I know what you're saying, but that's not what you mean. What you mean is our gospel's on every page. Saved by grace through faith, God's election of individuals unto salvation, that's their view. The Gospel Coalition's view of election, as they're Calvinists in their doctrine. So, to prove her point, she says, let's examine the book of Jonah, a minor prophet written as a historical narrative, to see how this familiar story points us to Jesus. Once again, she is going to be partly right, because Jonah, it just is inherently foreshadowing Christ, absolutely. But I think she's going to make some mistakes because she's going to try to overdo it. I think she's going to overdo it. Obedience to the call. The book opens with God's call to Jonah to go and warn the people of Nineveh of God's judgment because it was a wicked city known for its violence and idolatry. Instead of obeying, Jonah fled in the opposite direction, boarding a ship to Tarshish to escape God's presence and His will. It's here we see the first way that Jesus is better than Jonah. Maybe. We're already trying to insert Jesus here. How do we see Jesus in Jonah? Actually, we would say you don't, because Jesus did the opposite. So, I think this one's forced here. There are going to be times in the book of Jonah when you do have a foreshadowing of Christ, but hey, you see how Jonah disobeyed God and went the opposite way? Yeah, see, that's the opposite of what Jesus does. Jesus is obedient. Okay, if that's how you're going to say Jesus is on every page, which that's exactly how they say Jesus is on every page, I can absolutely see how you can take any given passage of Scripture and turn it into a Bible lesson. Okay, I get it. I can see how you do it. It's that easy. Like Jonah, Jesus received a mission from God to leave his home and deliver God's word to sinful people. Unlike Jonah, whose heart was bent on disobeying God's command, Jesus willingly obeyed God's call to leave his heavenly home to come to us. I mean, Jesus, yes, he did leave glory to humble himself. But Jesus going to Israel, not the same as Jonah going to Nineveh. Nineveh they were not a people of any form of promises, prophecies, or covenants. Israel's God's covenant people. See, this is, excuse me, I'm almost better, almost. So, this is where I say evangelicalism is boring. It overlooks key details. If you are just trying to make this, hey, here's the gospel, here's a little devotional from the book of Jonah, here's how you see Jesus in Jonah. It's not exactly the same. This is why when you're trying to make these parallel comparisons, it falls flat. Jonah being sent to Nineveh is not like Jesus going to Israel. Israel was promised a Messiah. Israel was promised a king. Nineveh is not a prophetic people of promise. They were not given the promise of a Messiah. So there's a very key difference there. So she's already, I think, made two big errors, overlooking some major parts of the story. Now, I will also say, here's one, and in my study on Jonah, I will remind you, if you go back to the YouTube channel, we actually have Jonah recorded for you. Here's the Jonah series, Jonah verse by verse. I kind of thought the titles were fun. It's a wayward prophet or more than meets the eye. And my theory here was that we're misunderstanding Jonah to a large degree, because I think that we do probably just jump into allegory. I don't know. I fixed my own hair that day, so I guess that's why it's all messed up. My wife wasn't there to fix my hair. But anyways, there's some interesting dynamics going on with Jonah. When you stop and you study the Bible chronologically, contextually, historically, you'll actually see that Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, that's what Nineveh was prophesied previously to bring destruction upon the northern tribe of Israel. Jonah knew that. And that does change the dynamics a little bit, because not only is Jonah being sent to Nineveh to call them, to tell them of God's judgment upon them, and then there's the possibility of them repenting and God sparing them. But if Jonah goes and Nineveh is spared, they're going to come and bring judgment and destroy the northern kingdom of Israel. And I think there's an interesting theory here, and some may disagree, but I'm willing to entertain it. What if Jonah says, hold on now, I have been told by God to go to Nineveh with this message, and Nineveh is to come destroy Israel. If I don't deliver the message and Nineveh doesn't repent, God will destroy the city. How about I cut myself off from God? What if I disobey, I flee, I'm going to go the opposite direction of Nineveh? Why didn't he just stay in Israel? I'm going to go the opposite direction of Nineveh. Yes, God may destroy me, God may judge me, but it will spare Nineveh. It will spare Israel, and Nineveh will receive judgment. In that sense, and this is just a theory, you're kind of having to speculate a little bit, but it's okay, you can speculate, have some fun with it. That being the case, maybe the typology of Jonah and Jesus is even more stronger than what this article here presents, because you have actually Jonah cutting himself off from God, taking the wrath that was to be brought upon Israel and having it being put upon himself, rather than seeing Israel face the wrath. Is that not kind of what Christ did? Did he not go to death on the cross and defeat death so that Israel might receive the kingdom, enter into everlasting life? Those are just some interesting areas you can go to when you're studying Jonah and other books of the Bible. Where are we right for certain? No, but there's a biblical case there that you can argue. And that's fun and exciting, because it's trying to take it all and put it together, right? Putting together the historical, grammatical, contextual information. But because they're so focused on just making everything a nice little gospel allegory, they don't even explore the broader context. And so they overlook those interesting things that you can explore there. All right, now, as we go on here. Cast down to death. God pursued Jonah. The Lord hurled on the sea a storm so intense that the boat was on the brink of breaking into pieces. While the terrified soldiers cried out to their gods, Jonah slept inside the ship. And there's absolutely that. And we mentioned this before. There is the parallel here, and she's right for pointing it out. There's the storm. Jonah's sleeping. There's the storm here. Jesus is sleeping. Very interesting to note how similar those two events are. What is the great doctrinal impact there? Once again, if Jonah is a foreshadow of Christ, especially in my theory, it's even stronger than how she's presenting it. Yeah, and then maybe there's, something there to really dig into. And so both of them were the means by which the storm was calmed. Jesus directly did it. Jonah said, "Throw me overboard." And also I would say that the idea of, Jonah left Israel to save his own skin. It doesn't seem like he was all that worried about his life here. Once again, if my theory is correct, he left Israel going the opposite direction of Nineveh to cut himself off from God. And then the storm comes. He says, yeah, this is God judging me. This was what I was trying to accomplish. I'm going to face God's wrath so Israel doesn't have to. Cast me into the sea so Israel's not destroyed. Once again, can I prove it? No, but it's an interesting theory, and I've got some biblical case to make for it. You can't say that Jonah was scared to die. So his whole, I'm not going to go to Nineveh because they'll kill me, he was willing to die on the boat. So it wasn't like he was afraid to go to Nineveh. I don't think. Jesus wasn't cast in the sea that day like Jonah, but he cast himself down to death when he went to the cross. Like Jonah's metaphorical death that saved the sailors from the storm. Once again, see, I explored Jonah much more carefully. I studied Jonah verse by verse. And I don't know, Jonah may have died in the belly of that fish. Could a person without divine intervention survive 3 days and 3 nights in a fish? No. Could a person without divine intervention survive being cast into the middle of a sea during a storm? No. Either way, divine power is needed. If Jonah was kept alive in the course of those 3 days, that's God's divine power. If Jonah died and then rose again, it's God's divine power. Either way, it's God's divine power. So I don't have a problem with saying Jonah died. But see, they are just they're glossing over Jonah. Just glossing over it to tell the gospel story. And they don't even consider these more interesting, more fascinating subjects. That's why evangelicalism is boring. They don't ever think outside their little evangelical boxes. Also because they're Calvinists, they put God in a box. So 3 days in the deep. Jonah's plunge into the sea seemed final, but God appointed a great fish to swallow him. Jonah remained inside the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights before it vomited him onto dry land. Jesus later explained that Jonah was a sign pointing to himself, which is absolutely true. Once again, maybe even more so because Jonah really did die, and Jesus died, and then rose again. With the mercy of a second chance, Jonah finally obeyed God's command and went to Nineveh, calling out, "Yet 40 days and Nineveh shall be overthrown." The Ninevites believed God and repented of their evil ways with mourning and fasting. Jonah had received God's saving mercy just days before, but rather than rejoice in the Ninevites' salvation, he was angry. And why was he angry? Because he knew that Nineveh was going to destroy them. The story of Jonah is more than a Sunday school tale about a big fish. It's a shadow of the Savior to come. It is, I agree, but I think that you've dumbed it down and you overlook it because you don't dig into the greater picture of it. And maybe more contextual study would reveal even greater things. And here's one, even if we want to stretch it a little bit further, what if Assyria coming to judge Israel, Syria kind of to the, kind of north. Gog, Magog, armies of the north coming and marching against Israel. The Messiah is going to have to suffer, and guess what? The tribulation's still going to come. Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection is not stopping tribulation, just as Jonah's efforts did not stop tribulation. Nonetheless, mercy will come to Israel at the end. So, I just think evangelicalism is boring because they cut it short all the time. They're so focused on teaching their little simple gospel, reading Jesus into everything. They're going to miss the whole of the Bible, the greater details, right? The more minute details. And greater, not that they're greater than Jesus. There's nothing greater than the story of the gospel message, but they're going to miss a lot of stuff. And that's why they miss right division, because they're missing the forest for the trees. And it's artificial trees. They went out in the forest, as I've said before, they put up fake Christmas trees, artificial trees, and they stare at them, and they miss the whole testimony of God's Word. So they miss the mystery. They miss Paul's ministry. They miss the dispensation of the age of grace that we live in. They mix it all together because it's all the gospel. It's all the same story, and they're confused, and they don't know. And they think that they're Israel, and God chose them individually, and all the like. And so they're boring, and we don't like to listen to them. We like to listen to right dividers that really study the Bible and teach the Word verse by verse. Exegetical analysis. So that's my thoughts on a Monday. I'm fired up. Go do something. Be productive. Go bench press 135 more than Zoran Mamdani. Okay. Make America have strong leaders again, physically, right? I don't have anything else for all of you. I appreciate each and every one of you joining us today. I hope that you go and have a great rest of your Monday. We'll be back tomorrow, and I'll remind you once again, probably no Friday show, but we've got some fun things in store. Just you wait. It's going to be a big weekend with the Labor Day Bible Conference. I've got some stuff planned. If you're coming to the conference, you'll see me there, and so I look forward to visiting with all of you, fellowshipping with you, and it'll be a great time, and I'll be telling you, about our Bible conference, because I'm going to steal the show. All right. So thank you so much for joining us here at Shields and Arrows. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, and I'll remind you once again, probably no